Nate, here we are again.
What's up,
And
bud?
yeah, hey man. I I'd like to talk to you today about spirituality and politics. And is there a place where the two can coexist? And as with spirituality and as with politics, I think it's important to understand, where do the rules break down? Where can I take this logical conclusion to, right? This logical argument, and how far can I take it before those rules no longer apply, right? I'm going from Newtonian to physics to relativity, right? Where do I need a new paradigm? I have some thoughts because I know that you wanted to talk about a certain crazy famous person. Um, and I had some
Gee, who
thoughts
could
about
that
that.
be?
Yeah, I know, right? So I want to hear you kind of, if you set it up, kind of your thoughts on it, where you're coming from before I kind of tell you some of my thoughts, because I want to hear what yours are. Because I went and did some of my research on Lex Friedman just to hear what he was saying, um, and it was interesting to hear on that level of platform someone who's not trying to shout you down, but just kind of wants to hear you out, steel man your argument,
Mhm.
and you all right, man? You gonna live? You got the COVID?
I'm good. It's no COVID. Allergies are really bad, so forgive me if I cough.
No. So I
I
got
don't feel
kicked in
sick.
the I got kicked in the face. I don't know, a week ago maybe.
Mhm.
Uh, and something that was, maybe a half as bad would typically turn into like a 2 week issue, 2 week nagging cough, and then like maybe a few day or a week like dry cough afterwards. And this time though, because I be hitting the steam room, I eat right, I meditate, I'm magic, dude. 3 days,
Okay,
three
steam
days.
room. I need to do that. I do everything else.
Uh-huh.
But, steam room, and that's on
Dude,
my
the
to-do
steam
list.
room is so sexy, man. It is so sexy for that.
Not only that, but I've actually heard, and this is probably something that's good for your audience as well to hear, is if they're not familiar. I think a dry heat room, specifically, if you can go to a dry room, like a dry sauna, just a couple times a week, it's known to boost your, as a man, your happiness levels. So you'll feel more elated, more accomplished. That and leg work. So when you're working out, be sure to do some, even though everybody hates leg day, but even if that's the case, then spread it out. So with your workouts, you do a little bit of leg workout with everything else. It's attributed
So
to making you feel blissful.
Dr. Rhonda Patrick, right? She's been interviewed by
Hey.
Joe Rogan multiple times,
Mhm.
and she talks a lot about the benefits of a sauna. I believe rated at 170 degrees for up to 20 minutes at a time. And so I go to my local steam room. I've been doing it now for a little over a year, and man, I get that sucker going. Oh boy, do I get it going! And I will spend, the most I've ever spent in there at once before bouncing, I think, was 24 minutes. And you can lose up to about a liter of water every 15 minutes, depending on the heat. So I usually chug water before I go and chug water after, and take a lot of salts. I actually take a lot of, I salt my food a lot. And then I also take a supplement of potassium citrate, which is salts, in order to, one, get potassium, which about 100% of the population is low on, and two, I need to replace it because I'm sweating so much. I'm getting my heart going so much, and it helps with the leg cramps as well, right? Muscles, and so yeah, that's what I do to help myself. But then I usually do 3 sessions, and then I'll go and I'll swim a little bit, do some sort of workout, usually core. I usually work my core out in the pool, and grip strength. I have like these floaty little dumbbells that I play with. And then I'll go back in the steam room. If I do 24 minutes, then this last time I did that, I did 18 after, which was rough. And then I went in the pool again, did my, a little bit of a workout, more stretched my abs at that point, and then went back in for like 12 minutes. And if I think today was like 21, 15, 12 is what, and so that's a little bit more typical. But I love it, man. It makes me feel so amazing. It makes me feel so amazing. I feel my blood flowing through my whole body. I feel my heart stronger. I feel like my brain works better.
That's amazing. And yeah, that's what I love, especially about breaking out a good sweat. You know, one thing I do want to get back into at least maybe a couple times a week, because I remember when I was doing that about 5 or 6 years ago, and mentally, I never felt better. And that was just yoga.
Yeah.
Yoga isn't meant to be a workout. It can complement a workout. You can get some power, moves with yoga, but it's not intended to, give you abs or, anything like that. It's more for, if you want to call it spiritual, that's more the intent of, yoga and such, but it does a lot. Even if you get into yoga for the wrong reasons, as Sadhguru says, it still has benefits, and it can still.
Dude, I love that philosophy so much. Even if you do the right thing for the wrong reasons, there's still benefit. And I was like, dude, that blew my mind. When I heard him say that, dude, that blew me away. It's like, holy shit. It's like, just like, these aren't things that you learn in Western education. These aren't things that you learn that are valuable at school. These are things that are like, oh my God, you did something for the wrong reason, while everyone else is doing things for the wrong reason, and they're just cowards about it and calling you out as they hide behind. It's like, to hear somebody so authentically say that, it's like, I felt almost as if a weight lifted off me, because it gave me permission to be like, okay, if I have to bribe myself, do something to, yeah, maybe at first isn't necessarily viewed as the best, but it gets me results to where I become a better person and influence others in a better way. I mean, how do you not call that a win?
Yeah, I completely agree. And there's always benefits to it. I mean, at least a couple times a week. Like, think about it, like Sunday is a good day of rest. Maybe you can come in and do like a good candlelight yoga or something like that. You can find a place, hit that up. And
so somebody who could totally do some yoga and chill the F out is CrazYe, man.
Yeah, that's a great segue.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you can kind of share.
I
Yeah,
like how
I'd
you
love
did
to hear
that.
your thoughts.
Yeah, well, holy shit, man. Holy cow. I mean, Alex Jones, how bad does it have to get for Alex Jones to make him blush? He's like made a whole career of trying to be the craziest person in the room, and in walks in Kanye praising Hitler. Yikes.
So, do you recall the words that he said when you said he was
I've
praising
only seen
Hitler?
clips. I haven't seen the entire interview, but I've seen, some of the clips where he says, I love Hitler. There's a lot to appreciate when Alex tries to give him a way out and say, yo, you're not a Nazi. You don't like Hitler. And all. He's like, no, there's a lot to appreciate about Hitler. I like Hitler. And then he goes into talking about highways. And I don't know how historically accurate this part is, but he says that he invented the microphone. I don't think Hitler invented the microphone. But I haven't checked, but I think that would be a little bit more, well known if he had. But that aside, there's something seriously going on with Kanye, and it's it's been a meltdown that's been gradually building up to this for like the last few years, especially. But what concerns me is that, I have read that he has suicide ideation issues and that he's bipolar. And it looks like what I'm afraid of is that one day you may find out that he's no longer here. And I'm not saying that somebody would take him out or anything. I'm just saying that he's a danger, I think, to himself.
So I'm not sure that I completely can see that. However, I purposely didn't watch those clips. I wanted to hear his argument from a different place. And so looking up at Newsweek, right? I looked up a Newsweek thing. Ye spoke to InfoWars host Alex Jones on Thursday and told him, I like Hitler and that the dictator had a lot of redeeming qualities. Now, there was something that I saw that was like, how Hitler was, to others, this, big tyrannical guy who was getting people all, cheered up, like to his party, party men. But how he was interpersonally, right? When to somebody who was like visiting, who he was trying to schmooze you.
Well, they say he was one of the most charismatic.
He was one of the most charismatic people. And so how is that wrong to say he had redeeming qualities? And so here's one thing that if I can, I'd like to share a little bit of a monologue that I thought up based upon what I heard on his points on Lex Friedman. I don't know that you watched it. I think I only watched like 25 minutes.
Kanye on Friedman?
Yeah.
I haven't seen the Kanye Friedman.
So Ye sees himself as Jew. And that's how he put it, as Jew. And when Lex pried into that a little bit, he said, well, they are the ones who were liberated by Moses, right? The slaves. And that's why he's of the belief, or at least he espouses, he's of the belief that everyone comes from Africa. If you're African, you're Jew. If you're Jew, well, if you can't talk about your own homies, then who else can, right? I'm an American. If I can't talk about my own people to make them better, well, who the hell else can? Because we sure ain't going to take it from anyone else. And so that's kind of what it seemed like he was trying to make. And then, so I got, so Ye sees himself as Jew, someone from the descendants of the liberated Egyptians. So he's calling out his own people. Or that's effectively what I got from his argument. Listen to what I did of him and Lex Friedman. Now, the very people on the political left and the Democrats who are saying he is speaking hate speech also stand up for self-identified personas. So how is somebody able to believe they're a woman, or believe they're a cat, or believe that they're, a furry, and that's totally okay? But someone wants to believe that they're a different race, actually much more believable than I'm a cat, and that's beyond the pale. And so if he sees himself as Jew, I think how he put it, under the same liberties given to, trans identity, furry identity, would this not be allowed? This identity that he's playing with. And I get these are controversial questions, but I think it's good that we understand where the rules break down. It will help us understand how to keep our feet, in a manner of speaking, because cancel culture is very ravenous. So is there a way to get it to cancel itself by exploiting the same rule set? And is it so crazy to think Ye is doing that? Seriously, I'm asking, because he's at once a crazy person and also somebody afforded constitutional rights. And is he perhaps onto something? And I've been very suspicious of the Ben Shapiro's, of the Candace, what's that really attractive Black lady, Candace, but she's Owens, yeah. And the Tomi Lahrens. Jordan Peterson going over there surprised me, because I have so much respect for that man. And so I still am very suspicious of Candace Owens, somebody who Joe Rogan thinks is full of shit, that I'm probably going to think they're full of shit too, because he's got a pretty good bullshit meter. And, the Dave Rubins as well. But it does seem that there's no zero-sum game. Right? They are smart at what they do. So when they land with a fury. But when they're not landing, they're just making up a bunch of shit. And that's kind of where it's so easy just to dismiss somebody. But I'm curious your thoughts about that. Like, if Ye is somebody who thinks himself as Jew, could he not be in a position to then go ahead and, say certain things that only a Jew would be able to say, just like Black people throughout the N-word. Hey, that's my word, right? That's what I hear. Hey, that's my word. I can use it, and say, hey man, I ain't gonna use it. So if you want that word, have at it, bro. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
So let's look at this. I think within the context, I think to start off with, one of your points with Kanye, at least in this interview, I believe you mentioned with Lex Friedman,
yeah,
that he says that he identifies as Jewish.
As well, he said as Jew.
Okay.
So like I think
Well,
Lex even said, so like you're a Jew. He said, no, I'm Jew, as in I'm from the descendants of, the slaves freed from
that
Egypt.
sounds like a cop out to me, because you could take that argument and say, okay, but then no racists have ever existed because we all descended from Africa. That's what he's trying to say.
Maybe. I don't
And
like
so,
this. I don't like to
so
say
it's like
what
he's
other
trying to
people are trying to
draw
say.
really broad strokes here. And then you put that in context with other stuff that he's saying, that for the longest time,
Mhm.
Kanye has, um, he's always had enablers throughout his career, because he's always tried to be the edgiest person.
Yep.
He
Yep.
has to
Well,
make the,
it makes him a lot of
he's
money,
a
man.
complete narcissist. Let's not break that down. He's probably more narcissistic than Donald Trump. A lot more.
I could see that.
I mean, he's putting himself up there. If you listen to that interview with Tim Pool, he's comparing himself to Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Sorry,
So
you're
in
not
the
even
Lex
in the same
Friedman
ball.
podcast, he mentioned that Barack Obama approached him to let him know that he was going to run for president. And so let's assume that's right, for a second, and assume for that. If he did, wouldn't that kind of make you feel like you're at that level? And so you're right. They would have enablers, because how many Barack Obama enablers are there? And so that's an interesting point. So he's surrounded by people that just blow smoke up his ass. And then went on his bipolar, highs, right? His manic state.
Well, then you also look at a lot of the stuff that happened. Of course, and again, I don't follow a lot of the gossip news. I see it in passing, scrolling
Yeah,
on social
that's
media headlines,
exactly
but
where
I
I
don't
am.
pay attention to it. Obviously, don't read it, but of him taunting like Pete, Davidson or things like that. Obviously, this man has issues, and they're seeming to manifest themselves in a more manic ways now. That's what brings me to my original point. I'm worried about his well-being, because obviously his mind is just gone. I mean, I'm not going to speak too much to the whole the anti-Semitism and stuff like that. Hey, I'm somebody that gets criticized for being not anti, but critical of Islam. But at the same time, I'll be one of the very first people to go up there and defend the Palestinians from what I see as human rights violations being committed by the state of Israel. I'm not making that against Jews. I'm making that as a judgment call against a nation state. As I can criticize my own government, I can sure as hell criticize a foreign, government as well, without criticizing the ethnicity or the religion of the majority of people that live in that country. And that's one thing that kind of scares me when we're going into like to another point of yours, I think, about the free speech and such. Right now, I've heard, at least, and I can't speak too much, maybe perhaps a little bit more about this, but I've heard in that political discussion group, which, by the way, I hope you do one day like to take part in.
Yeah, I wanted to go, but Wednesdays I've been taking my son to gymnastics, and so that I had to miss it. That bummed me
I
out.
enjoy it because I think the moderators do a very, very good job of keeping things respectful. And mostly everybody there across the spectrum. And you do get, I think this last time we had more, but even the liberals there are more like your breaking points type of liberals, like your, so they're not like your Rachel Maddows. They're pretty cool that way. But at least from what I've noticed, I've only attended 2 of them. But you do have a very good, diverse group of opinions. The lead moderator, he happens to be Black, but yet he's pro-life. And then you have other people.
Oh my God, he's a unique person.
Trump supporters.
Wait a minute. I thought all Black people vote in the same way. That's why what's her name in Georgia can be like, this means racism, right? Stacey Abrams. She got even less of the vote.
I think the proof is in the pudding, as they say. For those that turn out to vote, maybe it is You know what I mean? If you look at it that way, but how many people sit at home, or how many people vote third party combined? How
So
many
I
people
was
sit home out of the people that, out of the qualified electorate?
uh
How many of them stay at home because they feel disenfranchised within this democracy or constitutional republic,
yeah,
or however you want to describe it? Because I know you'd get a whole swath of different opinions and people saying
sure.
what is, what is it. My point is, as an anarchist, is whatever you think America is, it isn't. If you think America is a democracy, it's not. If you think it's a constitutional republic, we've lost that, and they're trying to chip away whatever individual rights we have left in wake of shock doctrine and everything. We don't even have capitalism in America. That is bullshit. We don't have capitalism. We don't have democracy. And like I said, we don't even have a representative form of government, because you can look at the average congressperson. How many people
I
do they
think
have?
wasn't there a study done that actually showed that
Several studies.
overwhelmingly that if like
Princeton is the most
90% of the
prevalent.
population wanted something, but 2% didn't, that 2% had all the money, then it would go that way. Like it's some outrageous cockamamie. Just
There is a Princeton study out there that's widely cited that actually affirmed that the US is an oligarchy, that it's not a democracy. And I think that there's some people have pointed to some criticism that they say, well, the testing, they're like, well, the gun issue, that's one issue. It's like, okay, you're pointing to a culture war issue there. You know, listen, I think it was Joe Biden himself that said that this is prior to becoming president, probably perhaps when he had more of his mental faculties and such like that, they were a little bit sharper. He was the one that said, no law becomes law in the US without a corporate stamp of approval, without lobbyists and such like that getting involved. That's quite revealing right there in that setting.
who said that? You
He's
said
pretty much telling you that we're a corporate oligarchy.
who was it you said that?
I believe it was Joe Biden, something to that
Biden?
effect. I'm not saying it quote by word by word by
Sure, and that would make sense though. I mean, that was the guy on national TV said, "Hey, how do we know that the Nord Stream pipeline is not going to get built? Oh, we have ways of making it happen." And then like 2 days later, it's blown up like the Russians did it. Dude, we're so transparently stupid. And what's so funny is that if Trump did that, dude, people would hair on fire, scream left and right. But here's a moron shit in his pants, eating crayons, doesn't even know where he is, might be dead. I don't know. Maybe it's the weekend at Bernie's, and they just kind of have some sort of machine making his mouth move. And but it's pretty nuts, man. It's pretty nuts just how ridiculous this show is. And people who pay too much attention to it are going to drive themselves crazy.
Yeah.
And this is why I wanted to know, do you think it's possible to have a spiritual life, one that benefits you, and be hyper aware of politics? Not just be aware of your local, but hyper aware. Like the people who watch Breaking Points, they're like, I paid them their money. The premium, I think, is like $1,500.
Breaking Points is becoming the new mainstream. And so, and what I mean by that is they're becoming the new establishment. And if
the people who watch it every day,
if you listen to their promos, if you listen closely, they're talking about replacing legacy media. So they're not saying by promoting independent media, they just want to become the new establishment. And they're kind of building that arm and such like that and putting it in place. I mean, I think this brings me to my point about what we discussed on Messenger. And I'm going to be calling out Elon here for a little bit because you could even throw the whole Kanye situation up there, you know, with him getting banned on Twitter. My friend Garland Nixon, who's actually has a syndicated radio show out of DC. He's a former police officer. He's been on Jimmy Dore's show several times, permanently banned from Twitter. And no excuse given. Yet you have Richard Spencer, an outright Nazi, on Twitter who's active. And when there's no, and then another YouTuber who I've listened to before, I actually like him a lot, is what's his name? I forget it off the top of my head. Anyway, I'll come back to that point. But, you know, if it's a free speech platform, then why is Alex Jones still off? Why hasn't he been recently?
Alex Jones got kicked off of Twitter a long time ago, didn't he?
He did. But then but what Elon's been doing is granting amnesty, like a blanket amnesty. That's how Kanye.
I would. I totally would. If I bought Twitter, you're fucking right, I would.
But the thing is, it's not free speech. He said the reason why he justified it is that one of his kids died in his arms. And so that's really, but okay, I can understand and empathize. Yeah. It is your company, but don't say that you're a champion of free speech.
No, I mean that I would totally give amnesty. I would totally allow people back on. I totally let Alex Jones back on Twitter. I would rather be. And so here's the thing that scares me. And I wish somebody sat me down and said, hey, let's actually watch what's Alex Jones saying. But instead, what I did is I just watched clips. I watched clips. I watched narrative pieces that wanted me to think the way that I should think. And he was, you know, obviously way off on Sandy Hook and pretty gross about it, like vile and gross about the way that he talked about the parents. And that said, outside of that, agent provocateurs, right? I mean, there's unclassified UFO files now where the freaking the government is now admitting to basically every UFO conspiracy theorist. And so I wish somebody would have said, okay, let's separate the red herring here, because he was obviously a drunk. I wouldn't know that if I didn't watch Joe Rogan, who's actually friends with the guy. He was going through a meltdown, and so he went fucking crazy. And that doesn't excuse him, but that makes sense. And the thing is, do we hold people to their worst? And is that what we do, is just remember them at their worst? Because isn't that the whole point of a redemption story?
That what belies my whole critique here, Elon, is if you're going to be a champion of free speech,
then be a champion of
free speech. Don't be the judge, jury, and everything. Be like, okay, well, this person, I don't like what they put, because at that point you're just no better than anybody else that came before you. You're just becoming the one now that's the arbiter of what's appropriate and what's not. And he has every right to do that, since that's his company. But in the name of free speech, then why are you banning people that largely are critical of the U.S. military industrial complex? By the way, the other person that I follow on YouTube, Jackson Hinkle, is also very critical of.
Oh yeah, Jimmy Dore has him on every once in a while, right? Yeah,
he's also
he got booted. He got the boot from Twitter too, right?
Yeah, and so that's my whole point. Is I'm strictly going at it from a free speech, because it seems that, well, I think we're getting to a point where we should never even trust people that belong to the oligarchy.
Oh, 100%, dude.
Human rights.
Dude, this guy showed up with
is that if things like Twitter, Facebook, social media, Instagram, you name it, if they're going to be the public square in a digital format, then we need to go ahead and make them public utilities. So
the thing is this guy showed up with like a $15,000 handmade, Satan's champion, a Halloween costume. And so if you take Lucifer at what Lucifer was the bringer of light and the bringer of knowledge, at the expense of morality, at the expense of empathy, at the expense of human values, at the expense of human rights, advance forward at all costs into knowledge. And that was the danger there present in Genesis, in the Bible, in the Garden of Eden, with the two different trees there. Now, I think that's what ultimately he's saying with that chess piece, is that in that Halloween costume, is that's what he is. And at some point, knowledge is going to align with wisdom, right? There is a point where they do overlap, but they also can then have a wide disparity, not much further on. And I think therein lies the problem of deifying anyone who's that far removed from the human condition. The guy's already got Asperger's. It's like, what the fuck does he know about being human? And then this guy's like the richest person in the world, who's likely also got his own sycophants.
As critical as I am of Elon, I do see a lot of genius in him. Yeah. And that's the same way as I'm going to try to be, like that with everybody. My biggest critique with him is that, well, he is an oligarch. And it's like what Obama even said. He says, if you're in a room full of people that are some of the richest and powerful people, even for like 30 minutes, it begins to change you. like when you're in their company. And this is what I think it comes into, like with personally, I think if it's kind of like a Jungian kind of a psychology with the collective unconscious, I start thinking that that's what happens. And then I think that this is also why they like to force us.
Like, what do you mean by the collective unconscious? Unpack that. Like, you're saying that when they go in, they're now being
well, I think this ties
by...
into, I think this is tying into, yeah, your question to me about spirituality and politics and such. This is why I love following, people like Russell Brand, because he kind of blends both spirituality and he's great because he even has a great, he kind of, whether it's like people on the left and people on the right, he kind of brings people together. And I really am a big fan of following. In fact, I think he's just the #1 YouTuber right now. I think he's overtaken Steve Crowder.
Joe Rogan is probably still #1, even though he's on Spotify. Yeah,
maybe his clips are, but I'm talking about long format.
Yeah. So, are you familiar with the word egregore?
I am not, no.
All right. So, dictionary definition, right? So, it's an occult concept. It says is ancient, from ancient Greek, is an occult concept representing a non-physical entity that arises from the collective thoughts of a distinct group of people, right? So maybe some people call them demons. So imagine we're in, we're in the simulation, right? We're in a hologram right now, right? We know that if we were to remove all the empty space from everyone on Earth, we would all fit on the size of like a sugar cube. And so our bodies are nothing but, condensed energy. We're made up of atoms, that atoms are 99.999999% empty space. And in this place where we have our real consciousness that's creating these games, and in any game that you play, you're limiting yourself. So the limitation now is the human game. So we're playing this human game on ourselves so unbelievably well that we kind of forget who we are because we're so immersed in the game that we become our limitations. And once we get past that, you can then maybe see through X-ray vision, so to speak, or in a different way, that when things become of ultimate importance, well, you start feeding something. And what is it that you're feeding? If it is, say, draining your energy, or it's negative towards the species, negative towards the world, it's auto cannibalistic, well, you're creating this non-physical entity. You're creating this demon that's sapping your energy. And if you walk into a room, if there's anywhere where the likes of David Icke and Alex Jones are right, and if there's anywhere in the world where there's reptilian demons, it's going to be in a room with the richest people in the world. And so chances are, if there's demons, you're going to be around people who have no fucks about the human, because they're just worried about that Luciferian, progression, which is just a matter of we bring knowledge to at the fastest lengths, and human rights, human cost, human collateral be damned.
Have you heard of Gnosis or Gnostics?
Yeah, I have heard of Gnostics, but I'm not all that familiar with them.
Samuel Anwar. I just got the book from that, but supposedly he's a really good authority, or was a really good authority on that. And the reason why I bring that up is in the Gnostic tradition, Lucifer is not considered a bad guy. And I think in some of the, he's considered the bringer of knowledge. The serpent itself is quite common in a lot of different legends throughout the world as kind of the deliverer of knowledge. In fact, the Naga in, I think, the Vedas, that's where you get Kundalini yoga from and all of that. And according to what Sadhguru says, he says that cobras are more related to us spiritually than any other animal on the planet, with the exception of the crow. So crow, cow, because obviously cows are very sacred in that tradition. Crows, cows, and snakes. And he says what's interesting is when you get really good into deep meditations and stuff, and they've done it where they've filmed them and stuff like that, where it attracts snakes. They're attracted to the vibration. I don't know why I'm going off on that tangent and stuff like that, but I'm just saying is that throughout world history and several traditions, and especially the occult, snakes are considered as not necessarily evil, or Luciferian himself is the deliverer of knowledge.
But what if knowledge, in the place of either or, in a binary situation where you can have knowledge or you can have life, right? You're not living a life of boundaries. You're living a non-dual state, or you can go into the dual state and measure everything. And with measurements, you're then separating yourself, and you're bringing on these limitations. And what if, just like any drug, at first it feels great, and then it starts harvesting from the body?
I personally have the belief that, this is something that I experienced while I did ketamine a few years ago for treatment. Wouldn't have actually medically, I think we discussed it.
Yeah.
Medically given ketamine. I had this thought or something come to me, and it tripped me out so much that I just kind of like compartmentalized it, just completely shelved it, like filed it, put it away, didn't think about it. And it's usually what most people have when they get on psychedelics, is that, that's where the meme comes from. I am God, the deliverance. And that's what I love more about non-dualistic philosophy, or especially like within the Buddha mind, within Buddhism, is that I think duality itself is an illusion.
Oh yeah, it is.
And that the real essence is that, know thyself, because you are God. Collectively, I think each of us have our souls, but I think what we are is that we're the universe, and the universe is in the grand scheme of the multiverse and such, living consciously, experiencing ourselves consciously, and that within us, there's the blueprint of the universe as well. And if everything's an illusion and we're all a hologram, all points in space and time are connected, like what they say in ESP and stuff. You bring up the Matrix. It's amazing because, within the context of the secular, within the politics, there is also a matrix. It's a little bit more easier to point to. You're not in the metaphysical world, so much. You're physical world, so you can point to the structures, but yet at the same time, people that are in the matrix, there's a lot of happy prisoners within that framework, because they see everything as red versus.
What about the unhappy prisoners? What about the unhappy prisoners that are going about their day trying to mind their business, and then they see some random clip of Kanye saying something stupid, and rather than just saying, not my problem, they then have the agent from the Matrix summon into them and possess the shit out of them and get them angry over some bullshit. That's
what they use. I think that's why the elites use the culture war.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's exactly.
This is all. You don't even have to be a Marxist to understand what even Marx talks about the Matrix in his theory about. He calls it the ideological superstructure that legitimizes the bourgeois, and he considers organized religion, God is the opiate of the people, media, all of that stuff. And this is back in the 1800s when he's talking about it, that kept the bourgeois in power. What I mean by bourgeois now is probably just the oligarchy, because wealth is more concentrated within the top 1%. And that's just all I'm going to say on Marxism. I think as far as communism and all of that goes, I'm more of an anarchist. I'm more of like, when you go, I think the best, this is my ideal society, and it's something I think the founders are a little bit more closer to, or at least what they were thinking is, instead of having, have state supremacies a little bit more. So if you wanted to live in a more socialistic state, you could go live there. If you want to live in a more, libertarian, complete capitalist place, you can go live there. To me, optimally, that's what I think would be best, because I think culturally we're so divided that
I honestly think that the two things that we could do to make everything better
yeah,
is to and this is going to sound crazy, we're talking about David Icke and Alex Jones, it sound just like them, but get rid of the Fed, get rid of the IRS, because the
yeah.
IRS was invented the same year that the Fed was invented, and that was it. And so it's like,
Security.
oh well, here's a bunch of rich people that are manifesting money, let's take it from the poor people to pay the piper.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it was Mussolini that's attributed to saying that fascism is the marriage of capital and state.
Well, and that's where, so I used to be so I guess belligerent is probably a good word, of the libertarian idea that taxation is theft. But the more and more I dig into
I
it,
still don't
it
think it's
really
that. I think
does.
it's coercion. I think the more appropriate term would be coercion, because that's obviously you're being coerced,
Yeah.
So I think that that's more a term I personally, but then, some people will feel passionately about it. That's fine. Every to each their own, but I think if we completely go, because everybody thinks of politics as a continuum of left and right. And it's true, there is a continuum of left and right, but there's also the vertical axis.
Yeah.
This never really gets addressed that much.
Yep.
Because if you look at in US politics, we're limited to the top right corner. And the top corner, the more up you go on the vertical axis, is where you get into more authoritarianism, statism. Yep. When you go further down is when you get into more libertarian or anarchy. And then there's also a left and right continuum. But the thing is it's all voluntary based. So if you wanted to go live in a complete anarchist, world, if you wanted to go live in a communist society, you could go do so, but it would be completely voluntary and wouldn't be enforced by the state. And we see that with communes and stuff like that, or intentional communities. In fact, some of them, I know one in Virginia, where everybody that lives on that commune or intentional community, they produce all of the tofu that's distributed throughout Whole Foods, and they net $500,000 to $700,000 a year, but they distribute all the money equally amongst everybody that lives there. If that works for some people, that would be great. Or if some people want to go completely like in the Wild West, where you have no government interference and straight up, that would be great too. But you'd have to get rid of the whole military industrial complex.
I think the best way to run a government.
What's that?
I think the best way to run a government is in line with the Tao. Like if you listen to the Tao Te Ching or you read it, there's a lot of advice on how to run government. And I can imagine Lao Tzu being an anarchist or a libertarian for sure. Because it's just a lot of, the more you get involved, the worse it gets.
Anarchy itself gets a bad name and a bad rap with indoctrination. Like they think it's all chaos. That's not anarchy.
Well, the idea of like the anarchist cookbook, and that's where it really comes from.
That's a lot of that's not what anarchy is intended to mean, at least by what Emmett Goldsmith or some of the greatest, or I think McHale.
We're not talking about IRA anarchy.
Oh, no. We're talking about what anarchy is that it's about eliminating power structures that have proven themselves or haven't proven themselves to be legitimate, and that the burden of proof is up to those claiming that authority. That's all anarchy means.
And I guess arguably it's true, but since we don't operate in that manner, then effectively it's not, right?
Well, but then again, that's where one thing where I do agree with Marx is that every political system that we've ever had, I mean, we're no longer hunter-gatherers. We evolved from that. Maybe we de-evolved from that. I don't know. There's maybe a good argument made there. But anyway, when we started forming societies, then we moved into, feudalism, and that broke down. Then we had capitalism for a little while. And then arguably that's changed because technically, if we really had capitalism, then Elon Musk would not have been in a position to buy Twitter to begin with. People don't
So
realize he relies a lot on government subsidies, and at least there's arguments to be made. Again, I'm just talking about what capitalism purely is. Is usually when you get to become an oligarch, what we really have is reverse socialism.
yeah, and that's certainly the way it seems that that our government runs now. Oh man, I was going to say something, but I lost my train of thought. Oh well, and
that's what I'm trying to do. Like in this group, is the first thing I said is in that political group is I said, you know what, the Matrix is real, and I said, as a I didn't get into metaphysical, but I said as a societal structure, it is real.
Yeah.
And I said, for example, you're railroaded every election to vote for two corporate parties that, if you objectively take a step back, they're virtually indistinguishable from one another.
It's a maze within a maze, so you don't actually see your way out of it.
Exactly. And, you know, and I said, the only thing that really separates them are these cultural issues. That's the only thing that they're really allowed to have. And I said, it's like what Chomsky said. He said, if you really want to limit people's thinking, well, then what you do is you give them a spectrum of what they're allowed to debate, but allow a very lively debate within that spectrum. So that becomes their whole world and everything. And I think that all goes back to manufacturing consent. I think Matt Taibbi wrote a really good update to manufacturing consent called Hate Inc., which is also what I want to read, but that's more updated for like your Maddow versus
Dude, I
Hannity.
love Matt Taibbi. Dude, that guy is so awesome.
Yeah,
and what do you think about Elon Musk? Giving him the data on Hunter Biden. I think that was such a smooth move.
It was smooth, but now he's getting a lot of hate for it. The thing is he hasn't changed.
Yeah.
His politics have not changed 20 years ago when he was the darling of the left. He hasn't changed.
No.
They have changed because they've been hijacked by a lot of the
party of George W. Bush, for sure.
Oh, the security state has really taken charge of the Democratic Party right now, big time. Yeah. Because
so I remembered what my train of thought was that I lost. So I'm not
the last whole thing. The psyop of the Russian collusion was a buildup for the Ukrainian war, at least that according to my beliefs.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, we already knew that. I think it was from 2014. I want to say the ambassador at the time that later became, I think it was the head of the CIA, that Ukraine joining NATO was a red line for Russia. Like we've known this since like 2014, if not sooner. The Minsk Accords, which were signed in like, I don't know, like 2014 or maybe 2016 or something. I don't know. Anyway, that was supposed to be what was going to put an end to the bombing in the Donbass and the attacks there, as I understand. I'm not a legal scholar. This is just kind of what I hear by following people like Jimmy Dore, who has like Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate, people smarter than me and more informed to kind of break down the situation. Well, and it's really interesting to actually follow it. Now, as far as Marxism, though, real quick, I don't know that I buy into Marx, but again, I'm just not well read on Marx. I do understand a lot of the bugaboos about, you know, the Maoist China taking some of those ideas and killing 50 million people. That is disturbing. That said, it does seem that no matter who you are, coming back to the very beginning of the show of, you know, when Kanye was saying things about Hitler, yeah, Hitler was a disgusting human being, but did he actually have some redeeming qualities? Well, apparently he was charismatic as fuck. So I don't know, do we call charisma a redeeming value? And yeah, and so it's so easy for us, and we so want to see a flaw in somebody and just completely discount everything that they do and everything that they say. But you know, there's some real good that came from Donald Trump being president. He's the first president in modern history that didn't start a war. And regardless, if you want to say, well, what about Soleimani and Iran, and he wanted to, well, you know what? It didn't happen. And he's the first president in modern history. And we have everyone telling us how fucking crazy he is. And certainly he acts the part. But we already know that the military industrial complex lies to us. We know that corporate media lies to us.
I'm not going to exhaust more on Trump. For me, we can keep talking about like the Republicans and the Democrats. It really doesn't matter who's president.
No,
doesn't
it really
matter
doesn't.
because
Everything he said, that he just surrounded himself with
I can
lifers.
you can tell, I can already tell you who's going to win and who's going to lose, no matter if it's the Democrats or the Republicans that win. It's the American voter, it's the American citizen that's going to get it up the ass, while the oligarchy is always going to come up on top.
I
That's the way it goes.
saw John Bolton clutching his pearls in distress that Trump, who doesn't follow the Constitution, quote unquote, and he might just have to throw his hat in the race and run for president. It's like, yeah, okay, dude. What are you gonna get, like 2% of the vote? John Bolton.
Oh, John Bolton. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Hey, let's go to war with Venezuela.
I actually
wish the oil.
I wish we could go ahead and resurrect Ross Perot.
Dude,
poor Ross Perot again, right?
Yeah, dude, that Ross Perot was ahead of his time. That's all it was.
Oh.
If Ross Perot had us as adults instead of us as teenagers, right? Watching, or young kids watching him. Yeah, Ross Perot was just ahead of his time. Ross Perot was the Atari Jaguar of politics. Hey, quote me, hear me now, quote me later. The Atari Jaguar of politics. And just that he just didn't have, and what made Atari Jaguar fail is that it came out with his banging system, first 64-bit system on the market, and it came out with like 8 video games. Mm-hmm. And who the fuck is going to drop that kind of money? I don't know, $200-300 at the time was a lot of money, right? That's like being mind blown that $600 for a PS5 or whatever. And so who's going to buy this expensive console system if there's only 8 games? And so it went bankrupt because even Sony PlayStation 3, I think, as popular as that was, it had to sell consoles for like 3 years or something, something crazy. Maybe it's 1 to 3 years until they actually are good on their cost and actually start making money on the consoles. And so the console is what they take a deficit in so they can sell games and to not be able to make back. And so, he just didn't have the base, the voter base. But Ross Perot, man, dude, I would have loved to. Dude, I'd be honored. Like, fuck yeah, Ross Perot. Hey guys, dude, he was.
My fear is with this whole gay situation.
With what?
The elites will use this as an excuse to further clamp down on third parties or allow them access to the ballots.
Probably.
They're going to try to prevent, because now the way that it goes now within American politics is if you don't vote for one particular party, then you're enabling white supremacy. So can you imagine now if you vote third party, well, you must be enabling white supremacy.
Yeah, I could easily see that straw man being used.
Yeah, well, up is down, left is right.
Well, that actually comes back to you again, mentioning about how the Matrix is real, right? That's another illustration of the illusion that we live in, right? We think that the more that we plug in to mainstream media is the more that we would, or I guess not even mainstream. Well, I guess mainstream if you count, say, breaking points, like you mentioned. And I love that Jimmy Dore says Kyle Klinsky has mild Klinsky. That's so funny. I used to respect the hell out of Kyle, and it's not that I don't respect the hell out of as anymore. It's just that I've seen him soften a bit. And it's just, I just don't find myself interested. I don't find myself all interested.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. I used to listen to Kyle all the time up until the whole falling out between Jimmy and
the way he handled it, the way Kyle
I didn't like the way
ridiculous.
It's like, dude, they're completely blackmailing him.
Yeah,
I get it. They're your friends. All you have to go out and say is like, I don't.
I have a theory why he acted that way.
Wow.
Have you seen the picture that he uses, this wide-eyed look on like his new profile picture? If you see the whole picture, it's actually him staring into the beautiful eyes of Crystal Ball, and he looks like a boy in love. And so he even mentioned that when news came out about Anna Kasparian and Nice News Dress, that he was with Crystal Ball. And he said, and as he was talking about, thong. And Crystal Ball went, ugh, that's it. That's it. That's all she did, because I guarantee she's had a bunch of gross motherfuckers be like, hey, baby, let me see your thong. And so I can already imagine with that puppy dog look that Kyle Klinsky has, that he decided to get on his white knight and ride into town, as a lone ranger, and like, motherfucker, ain't nobody gonna talk to my girl like this. And he's just, and he's not even married to her. And that's really what I read into the situation, because it made no sense the way he responded. What are you, some sort of religious, bigot or whatever? Who are you to say what she can't wear? Like he didn't, like, he should have the right to go to work and not have somebody flash their ass at him. That said, if I was in private, I might enjoy Anna Kasparian flashing her ass at me. She is an attractive woman. I'll give her that. I don't respect her, journalism, if that's what you want to call it. They are the ones trying to replace the establishment for sure. And then I could see Breaking Point's edging them out. I can't imagine that I would be too bummed out if they did. I hope that, or not Breaking Points, but Breaking Points is trying to, but
I like Crystal and Soccer. As much as I have my disagreements with them on certain things, I do respect Crystal and Soccer, because I think in their hearts, they think that they're being, you know what I mean? I think that they think that they're being more transparent, but I think they're still in the DC mindset and all of that kind of stuff. They're still products of it.
Well, I'm sure they are, and they're going to have some influence, but I think they've also proven their acumen, their political acumen. And so I would be much happier
capitalizing on it. Yeah, definitely.
But like, who don't we have the right to, like, should we all just be poor? Should we all just like,
I'm not criticizing. I still listen to them. I'll listen to them more than I will like CNN or MSNBC. I still listen to them every day. I like Crystal and Sagar more than I do Ryan Grimjob.
Ryan and Robbie Suave.
Ryan, that's what Jimmy Dore calls Ryan Grimjob.
Yeah, I know. That's awesome. And so I really like and respect Jimmy Dore. Really respect Jimmy Dore. I like Redacted. I can't remember the guy who does Redacted.
That's
and not Redacted Tonight. That's different. That's Lee Camp. But there's another one called Redacted that he was pointing out about how ridiculous it was on the New York subway. Just say that in case of a nuclear bomb, just run inside. It's like, what incinerate with my house, or die of fallout, radioactive fallout. What's the house gonna do? And he was just talking about how ridiculous it was and how they're causing unnecessary panic and getting people afraid. And so this is the thing, is that coronavirus fear didn't last long enough. And that's why we have to really push. Something's going on, man. And this is where, anyone who uses the word who uses the word conspiracy theory in a pejorative way, I completely discount now. You know what? I have seen enough bullshit come to life. Donald Trump is this existential threat to humanity and threat to national security. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton, who's so incompetent that their servers don't work, to where every single person on her staff in the State Department has a Yahoo account. And right after the election, in January 2017, you find out, oh my God, Yahoo got hacked and every fucking email got hacked. Every email, including every State Department document that was sent through Yahoo. And it's just like, and that's not a threat. And it was done. Why? Because Bernie already said, hey, can we be done with her emails? And he meant it to be, hopefully, I hope he meant for it to be authentic so he could actually talk about the issues. But they certainly used it in the grossest possible way to give her cover. And then she compromised national security in an outrageous way with that cover. And so something's going on where the elite cabal, and I suspect Klaus Schwab is, hey, let's microchip your kids, Klaus Schwab, right? His dad, who was a Nazi, and he's running the World Economic Forum or UN, right? And like, this guy isn't elected.
Yeah.
And so
what we're seeing here, doesn't he look and talk like a Bond villain too?
Yeah, dude. Well, yeah. Well, his dad was.
Doesn't that totally ring like a Bond villain? I get like a complete Bond villain vibe whenever he comes on TV and shit like that. All he needs now is the cat.
Yeah. Well, and I think that you know what? That's funny. So your emotions there reminded me of Mr. Burns. I could see him as a Mr. Burns, just evil, vile. Yeah, man. Everything that we see going on in politics right now, war in Russia, Jeffrey Epstein. So Jeffrey Epstein likely reported to people like Klaus Schwab. And this is where, the new world order, right? This is where I see looking, trying to take a step back and be, okay, why would we need to push Russia? Well, we need everyone to be afraid. Well, Russia didn't work. We didn't go to war with Russia. Okay. So then the coronavirus magically escapes.
Right.
And then on top of that, as it magically escaped and infected everyone. Well, what's a great way? What's standing in the way? Number one, what's standing in the way of a new world order? Well, America, and the fact that we've got, the largest standing military, and the public at least are still fighting pretty heavily for some level of rights and against the idea of a new world order. We're aghast about having, some level of despot. So how do we crush Americans? Well, let's go ahead and actually enact communist style lockdowns across their country, our country, and completely shut down businesses. Go fuck yourself, small business. Oh, it sucks that your business died. Go eat a dick. Like, just the way that we treated people, demonize them for not getting vaccinated, and come to find out the vaccine, as YouTube would say, is completely safe for you. And YouTube science says that vaccines are completely okay. And I'm not allowed to talk about what has been shown as a result of people actually getting it. And so it's pretty insane. And then the fear of COVID didn't last long. So now it's like, oh, well, what if we ramped up fear of nuclear war? And what's a good way to do that? Well, let's have an incompetent pants shitting, crayon eating, weekend at Bernie's dead guy say, well, how do I know that the Nord Stream pipeline is not going to get built? Well, we have ways of making that happen. And then 2 days later, it blows up. I'm yeah, see, I mean, Russia did it. They blew up their own pipeline.
Before, I thought that they definitely wouldn't run him again. I actually think they are going to run Biden again in 2024. He's going to lose, but I think they will run him again, because for the simple reason is they don't have anybody. Gavin Newsom has already said that he's ruling out a run, and he's the only other person I think that they have on their bench that and prayer with. And I could totally see a scenario. I could totally see a scenario in 2024 where the Democrats can win, and that scenario would be if we're really going to see a showdown between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis for the Republican nomination. I could see a situation in which, say, DeSantis etches out a victory. I don't see Donald Trump bowing out gracefully or anything like that. He'll probably say that this is rigged against us. They stole it from us. If a certain percentage of Trump followers stay home, then Democrats could win.
Interesting. Okay, I can see that. So I think that if Trump loses to Ron DeSantis and Ron DeSantis decides he wants to run, I think it's President DeSantis. 100%, dude. Seeing what he did, and the fact that he can tout, hey, who else are you motherfuckers that's talking about building bridges and infrastructure? Rebuilt a bridge in 3 days after a hurricane. Yeah, suck it. Yeah, and his bona fides. Yeah, dude, the left.
I'm not criticizing. I actually think that he is the strongest candidate.
Yeah, 100%.
My thing is Donald Trump.
No, that was a really good point that you made. That was a fantastic point, because if Donald Trump then throws in a hand grenade, right? How many people are going to be hurting from shrapnel of that hand grenade that are going to stay home licking their wounds because they don't see it as worth it because it's stolen? That's interesting, man. I wonder how many people on the Republican right are swayed by that, because I feel like.
Because as much as Ron DeSantis is, he will be portrayed, or at least in the campaign, they're going to portray him as the establishment choice. So this is the candidate.
Oh, I'm sure he's not perfect, but he's certainly got some strong creds.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Wow. Huh. Yeah. I wonder if he's actually going to run. If they try to run Kamala Harris,
it's going to be entertaining. If anything else, dude. I'm looking at it completely as an observer. I'm not partisan. I'm just thinking this is going to be fun. I'm just going to be having popcorn and watching this whole thing go down. And I think it's going to be great for comedy. If anything else, it's going to be great for comedy.
Well, I'd rather people just pay attention to their local politics anyway, right? Whoever gets in national
Well,
office
that's
likely is
where
going to have zero effect on your life.
you really want to
Uh,
change people's
yeah.
lives. Go run for your, your homeowners association. Go run for places where you really do have direct impact on people's local, like taxes and all of that kind of stuff. Go run for a city board, city council. You have a lot of influence.
That's a good point, right? Where can you add value to your community in order to help out, right? Is it only in a national giant political office? Right. I certainly fell victim to that idea that I should try to run for this big thing to get some publicity. And it's not that it didn't work, it just didn't work well. And so I certainly got some publicity. I just didn't have any sort of preparation or infrastructure in place to capitalize on it when I did, in order to use it in ways that could actually benefit me, which is, coming back to limitations in the human game, right? Which makes sense, right? This is all a construction within the hologram of the rules that I needed to play the game that I need in order to augment the human game to get me to where I am now, and figure out, okay, well, what do I want to do now? Do I want to continue playing with limitations, or do I want to start letting go of some of these limitations? And if nothing else, right, Kanye is a crazy fucking person, but letting go of some of my limitations and just actually trying to hear him out is like, hey, who's somebody I respect? Lex Friedman. Who do I know that he talked to that I respect? Hey, Lex Friedman. I'm interested to hear how he presented his argument. And I'm not really interested on the Alex Jones. It's there to be comedy.
Respect. This is all, he went on Lex Friedman prior to this whole prior meltdown. I don't know if Lex would have him on now. Maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, Lex is wonderful friends with Joe Rogan, so he likely knows something or other about Alex Jones. Alex Jones is known for being a comedian, man. If you've ever seen him on Flagrant, he's so funny.
Alex lives probably only 15, 20 minutes away from me.
Oh, really? That's funny.
So I haven't seen him yet, but I do hope, I'd give him a fist bump if I saw him in public. I have nothing.
I'd probably give Alex Jones a hug, right? I like hugging people. And I get, again, that he said some horrific things about Sandy Hook, but you know what? I have the benefit of not being one of those parents. I have the benefit of not being one of those victims. And I have the benefit of also allowing somebody to not be defined by their worst moment, because you know what? I don't want to be defined by my worst moment. And, let he, who has not sinned.
I'm not going to, I'm not going to judge,
Yeah.
I don't want to be known for my worst moments either. So live and let live.
Yeah. When I saw him with, on Flagrant 2, man, so funny, dude. He came out dressed up as Wonder Woman. Oh, so funny. And what a crazy person, man. That poor guy. And he was so rotten inside and treated himself so rottenly that rot came out and slimed the parents of Sandy Hook. And that's unfortunate. That's perhaps the warning that people should take from any sort of self-destructive habits, is that fear and hate that's left to itself with devices of chasing it down with alcohol is only going to lead to some level of rot, right? Alcohol is called spirits for a reason, right? You get possessed. This is why people who are drunk do things that they don't know that they would normally not do. We say, well, that's actually just the real person coming out, maybe, but it certainly seems like somebody's acting in ways that they wouldn't normally act, right? Maybe that's just their inhibitions down, but they do seem possessed in a way where now their inhibitions are down. And that's, again, that's just a recipe for being the worst version of yourself.
Yeah, I agree. I have to agree with you.
Huh.
So that's one thing I did bring up to this group as a future topic to discuss. And I said, I'd like to discuss conspiracy theories in that political group. And they're like, okay, what do you mean by that? I said, okay. For example,
I mean, you're just throwing the gauntlet down fast, huh?
I'm like, for example, any good police detective is a conspiracy theorist.
Oh, 100%.
Any good investigative journalist is a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, they have to sniff out the story.
I said, what I want to do is I want to qualify the term, because what I'm scared of is that they're loosely throwing around anything now that targets the oligarchy, the government, whatever, as say, oh, that's just a wild conspiracy theory. And I'll be like, well, not so long ago, the lab leak was considered a conspiracy theory, yet all the evidence now is pointing to the lab leak.
Which is so funny, man. Like that doesn't that sound like a South Park episode? Like in the background, you see this giant building that says Wuhan Lab for Coronavirus Research. And then 200 yards away, you've got like this wet market and people are buying like a weasel and buying a chicken. And then they say, hey, did this coronavirus come from that coronavirus research lab? No, it came from a chicken sneezing on a weasel, and they were too close to each other. And it's racist to say that the virus came from the lab, but it's completely okay to be like, ew, Chinese people eat weird things. It's like, I mean, doesn't that sound like a South Park cartoon, man?
Yeah, life is stranger than fiction.
Yeah,
all too often. And before that, I remember when you said that Saddam didn't have weapons of mass destruction, you were considered a conspiracy theorist.
Yep. For about 11 months.
Powerful people do collude. And I said, what do you call the mafia? That's a conspiracy. I said, wasn't it a conspiracy that killed Julius Caesar? Et tu, Bruti? So to go ahead and say that, equate that all conspiracies are somehow tinfoil hat.
Mm-hmm. The Gulf of Tonkin, JFK,
guess what?
Right? Martin Luther King, Malcolm X.
Exactly. Why is it so far-fetched?
Yeah, Lincoln being shot. I mean,
that was a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Hey, what started World War I? The Archduke Ferdinand. That was a legit conspiracy.
Yeah, 100%. I know. But you're just a conspiracy.
What do you call the Holocaust? What was the Holocaust?
Yeah.
A conspiracy, right?
Where people are conspiring.
Exactly. Why is that considered science fiction?
Well, because
it's so bogus to think that people, especially those in power and wealth, collude.
Well, because it comes back to Nietzsche, man, and the true Superman is not somebody of great physical strength, but somebody of great psychological strength. And the vast majority of the population don't want to do anything other than just exist. Yeah. And the very few amount of the population who want to help start out as the camel, and the camel's there to help out. And so the people that are there to help out and carry your burdens want to make sure that you're also taken care of and you're not hurt. And they're going to be the ones that try to jump out in front of that bullet and say conspiracy theorist and get summoned by a benevolent agent, while everyone else is just like basically an agent walking around. And then a little bit beyond that is the lion, where, that dragon, that, the matrix orchestrators, the architect that says, hey, you're supposed to think this way. Rather, the cultural dragon says, hey, thou shalt rather. The lion says, no, I will my own way. I will my own command. And then after that is the baby, because then the baby realizes, oh, this is all a fucking game. And if my game doesn't work, well, great. I'll just create some new rules. If my tower block falls, I'll just create it, or my block tower falls, I'll just go ahead and create another block tower. And being able to enter the world and be and exist in the world in the way in which, Lao Tzu, right? Old child or old boy, old master or old boy. And, very much like just kind of a happy kid, Chuang Tzu as well. Apparently just a really happy kid. And the more you take yourself seriously, the more you're summoning these egregores, and the more you're summoning these things to sap your energy. This is where a lot of sickness comes from. Yeah. And, perfect health is a natural state, right? I get that I went to the steam room, but the steam room itself is not going to clear something up that would normally take three weeks, and I'm done in 3 days, right? It's also my ability to make sure that I'm eating good food. I take good supplements. I take heart and soil. Man, I almost got myself in trouble and said blood instead of a heart. It's like, oh damn, that's not. I'm talking about Kanye too long. But I take I think is it blood and soil? Is that right? Heart and no, heart and soil. Yeah, heart and soil. And then I used to take a bunch of Umzu stuff, but I stopped that. I just didn't like taking way too many freaking supplements. And that way I'm getting my organs and just my healing meditations, man. 3 days. Something from instead of 21 days, 3 days. And dude, amazing. And so finding ways to where you can have peace is a great way to have health. And if you don't have health and you don't have peace, but you've got millions and millions of dollars, is that really what's important?
No.
Exactly.
Blissfulness. I think that's the goal of everyone, is that they want to be blissful. And
so having the ability to, what I've uncovered in my mentorship with Peter Sage, or rather my menteeship with Peter Sage, as him as my mentor, is just like, how do you find that happiness and align it with money, and actually have the benevolence of the universe then give you the abundance that, so that way it's not just, people who you severely disagree with that have money. You don't need to hate them. You can just agree with their ideology. Because if you hate rich people, you're basically, signing an oath of poverty. And I could see how I've done that to myself and the limitations of my game in order for me to play the game in the way in which I decided the rules should work, right? I decide. Isn't that what was in Latin that the oracle pointed to when Neo went to go speak to her? It was like, I decide or you decide, I thought. And so, and that's just it. We decide, right? When Neo went to go talk to her when she was sitting on the park bench in the second movie, right? She said, you've already made your decision. You've already decided how things are going to come because you've already been planting your seeds. And now this is a manifestation out of the ether, right? Out of the, the quantum realm. And that's, collapsing the wave function for it to appear in the hologram. And so I thought you would have already known that, she said. Silly boy, basically. And so the more that we have peace, the more that we're actually planting, what we want, right? But usually we allow ourselves to be so disrupted by chaos, we go ahead and plant a bunch of weeds so we can go ahead and pull weeds tomorrow. Like, I have all these weeds to pull, but I can't stop planting these weeds, right? I'm so busy planting these weeds, but I can't stop pulling these weeds. And as if that makes sense. As if that's actually an honorable way to live, as if that somebody else should be shouted down for not like wanting to like follow that example. And yeah, man, what Marcus Aurelius, the point of life is not to, find oneself, within the majority, but not to find oneself in the ranks of the insane.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say with the Trump derangement syndrome, the COVID, where you're getting people like calling in, this person's unvaccinated and they're walking around, right? I think you can say that that's insane. Somebody who's driving in their car by themselves, nobody else in the car are wearing a mask.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say that's a little insane.
Yeah. Well, you still get, I think it was on Twitter the other day, people still saying bring masks mandates back. And you have some people that I swear to God, 20 years from now, you may see people still wearing masks out in public.
I know. Right. Yeah. They'll be dressed, there'll be little boys wearing skirts, black nylons, black, fingernails, and, listen to Skinny Puppy. But yeah.
What a world.
Interesting. Well, hey man, any last thoughts that you'd like to share that we haven't really covered?
No, I think we hit a lot of really fun topics tonight. So I look forward to the next discussion. And yeah.
That's great, man. I really enjoy the conversation as well. And really, I think the big takeaway is if you're going to have spirituality and politics living within the same being, you've got to do it in a way where you don't corrupt the host. If you find that you're being angry at other people and it's their fault, I would have had it but for them. Right? All these butts, what's the shape of your butt? right? I would have been successful, but for all these things, but I didn't have your parents, but I didn't have your opportunities. And so if you can get out of your way and realize that you are the architect of your life, of your destiny, of your circumstances, and then have a sense of peace, whatever it is that you need to do is most likely also going to help those around you. If you can do something that can help you find that, most likely it's going to radiate out and help others. So this is where you should be your own Jerry Maguire. Help me, help you.
Help me, help you.
Yep.
And I'll say amen to that, brother.
Yep. Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for a lively discussion. And until next time, and love you, man. Have a good one.
Love you back, bro. Take care.
All right, sir. Take care.
Peace out.